Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be doing a CV axle on this 2011 Dodge Ram quad cab. I've been putting it off for almost a year now. The front passenger is spitting grease all over the place, so I went ahead and got the axle, and I planned on getting it done. So we'll pull the truck in the shop and we'll get her started. Okay guys, so we got the truck in the shop and we're almost all set up. First thing I'm going to do is we'll get the truck jacked up, we'll put the jack stands under, and we will get this tire off. So let's get it done. Alright, so we got the truck jacked up and supported with jack stands. I gotta say, use the jack stands because the one time I didn't, it almost slipped off the jack. So, recommendation to everybody, just for safety. So I'm going to be using a DeWalt impact, only to take these off. Putting them on, I'll be using a torque wrench. Okay. First things first, remove the wheel. Okay, so a couple different ways to do this, but what I'm going to do is disconnect the upper ball joint, disconnect the tie rod end, and I'm going to pull the whole knuckle out. And I'm going to see if I can't tap that old axle out of the hub. So, we'll get the right tools and let's get started. Okay guys, so I'm going to start with the upper control arm. So, it takes a 21 mil deep socket. I didn't have a 21 mil, but I did find this 13/16 deep socket. Now that worked well for me. Now I couldn't get my DeWalt in there, but just broke it loose with a Johnson bar, and we'll get that nut off. So that's that. Now we'll move on to the tie rod, and then we'll get the axle nut loose as well. So for the tie rod end, I believe that is a 21 mil. So there's a cotter pin in there you'll have to remove once that's out of the way. Take your castle nut off. Now let's get this big axle nut off. Just like that. Just going to grab a hammer and we'll separate these joints. Okay, so now that we got the bolts off, we're just going to give these joints a tap with a hammer. We'll free them up. So we'll start with the tie rod. Another trick is to hit it on the actual side of the knuckle. So the tie rod is on there pretty good, but the axle is loose already. So with all that rust and corrosion, you do got to give it a few good whacks. That'll separate it. And same thing with the upper ball joint. So we're going to hit it on the top of the knuckle, and that should free it up there as well. Oops. Want a better place to hang this. Okay guys, so I'll show you where I'm at. I did run into a little snag, so I was really hoping to be able to get the axle out without taking the caliper off, but when I broke the upper control arm and the tie rod loose, it did put a bit too much pressure on the brake line. So I did opt to take the caliper right off. So you can tie it up, but I just threw it on a stand, so there's no extra pressure, it's not getting pulled on. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and get this separated. So the axle was in there pretty good, but I just threw the nut on the end and gave her a few light taps. Now we just gotta get it out of the way. Okay, so this will take a little convincing, but we'll work on that and I'll show you what's next. Okay guys, so I'll show you where I'm at. I did manage to get the old axle out. So what I did is once I hammered it loose from there, it was still in the front transaxle, but I was able to maneuver it out of the hub, and then I rode it up the back of the knuckle, and then I was able to pop it out of the knuckle while it was still in the transaxle. So once I got that end out and I got it around the ABS lines, just got under the truck and I gave the inner axle side a few taps with a hammer and she popped right off. So we're going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up. So you can see she was spitting lots of grease, and we'll get ready for reassembly. So I'll start by cleaning up the control arm. I'll lube up that shaft. I'll clean up the brake parts and we'll start putting her back together. So we're almost ready for reassembly. I got in here with brake cleaner and cleaned everything up, all that grease from that axle. And I did get in there and I cleaned that spline on the shaft. So all I'm going to do now is put a little bit of grease on the inside of that spline there, and we'll get the axle reinstalled. Let's do it. Okay, so installing the axle. Like I say, once you get everything all clean, grease up the inner transaxle spline. You'll slide it in. Now the trick I found is on the back of the knuckle there's a bit of a groove that if you start the axle in, it will actually slide right down in place. just like that. So that was the hardest part for me, is wrestling it out of the hub. But once you have that, you can start reassembling. So let's get to it. We got our brand new axle nut. We got our tie rod nut. Just gotta find it. There it is. I disconnected the ABS lines, so I'll put those all back together. And we'll get the caliper reinstalled. Okay, so we got these big old bolts for your caliper. So we're just going to snug that axle up just for now, hold her in place, tighten everything up. And we're going to reassemble this caliper. So it's kind of hard not to get the rotor dirty, but now just being careful of your brake line. So as you can see, that's a bit tricky. Just take your time and make sure you don't have slack on that caliper. Okay. Now that we have that, we'll start tightening everything back up. I'm going to start with this upper control arm. So I got that in a little bit. Now we'll tighten up this caliper. And when you're tightening it down, just make sure to do it nice and even. Now for this upper ball joint, we're going to snug it. Used another wrench to tighten. So as you can see, one wrench is going to hold the end of that bolt. If not, it will just spin freely on that upper ball joint. And every crank is getting a little tighter. So torque specs on the upper ball joint or upper control arm is going to be 70 foot-pounds. And I'm going to torque the tie rod end to 55 foot-pounds. But before I get my torque wrench out, I'm going to get this nice and smooth. It's not going anywhere. Okay, so that's good. And we'll set our torque wrench. So 70 foot-pounds for the upper. Tighten that down. There's 70. We'll back this off and we'll get it down to 55. I'll say 60 just to be safe. There's our 55. Now I forget the brake caliper torque specs, but I'm going to snug it up to 70, actually maybe 80, just to be sure. So caliper set at 80. So we'll go ahead and we'll zip on our axle nut. Manual says 230 pounds of torque on this. So I'm just going to make sure it's good and snug with the impact. And that's that. All right, so the only other thing I'm going to do is spray this rotor down with brake cleaner. I got my greasy fingers on it. And we'll wipe her all down. You want to make sure this is really clean. Get all that oil, all that grease right off that rotor. I'm going to do the same to the other side. Well, maybe not. The other side's all right. Okay, so in a nutshell, axle's reinstalled. It's good and snug. Tie rod's connected, torque down. The only other thing I can suggest is make sure you don't forget your cotter pin on your tie rod end. Now the one I had was a little beat up, but I can still reuse it. So we're going to find that, reinstall it, and we'll get to putting the tire back on. Okay, so once you get everything all cleaned up and your cotter pin back in your tie rod end, we'll go ahead and we'll get the tire reinstalled. Overall, it was a fun job. I'd say most people can do this as long as you have the right tools. Probably the most random part is going to be the axle nut socket, but I was lucky enough to have that. A set of impact wrenches made this job extra easy as well. start these by hand. I don't use an impact to tighten these because I've had a shop over tighten them and the nuts actually became too swollen for a 22 mil to take them off. So I had to go get a whole new set of sockets, or sorry, lug nuts. I went with the Gorilla ones, and they've actually worked really well. So, let me find my extension. We'll get this torqued on. I'll snug that down. And remember to tighten them down in a crisscross fashion. And for a final torque, I'll take the jack stands out and we'll drop her to the ground. Well, that slipped. Okay. So we'll drop it the rest of the way and we'll clean up. All right, guys. So yeah, hopefully this helps somebody. This is my first time doing an axle, but it wasn't that bad. And I'll show you. This one actually had a giant rip in the boot. If I can find it. But yeah, nonetheless, it was a gaping hole. So I thought I would do it before it failed on me. Can't see it. There it is. There's a big gaping hole right in that boot. Well, that's it. And in a nutshell, that's how I did my axle in this 2011 Dodge Ram. Just going to take it for a road test, make sure everything's good. But hopefully this helps somebody. And if you enjoyed, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. And do what you want to do. I'll see you guys next time.